Welcome back, focused learners, to another explainer. All right, today we're peeling back those heavy velvet curtains, looking way past the flashing neon lights, and we are going to completely dismantle the illusions of the casino floor. Now look, we're not going to talk about superstition today. Nope. Instead, we're looking directly at the cold, hard neurobiology of your very own biological machine. We're going to explore what actually happens inside your brain when you encounter games of chance, and how understanding your internal wiring, well, it's literally the ultimate key to mastering the external world. Okay, let's dive right into this. We've all experienced it, right? You know, that sudden, almost electric rush where you just know things are going to go your way. It's a deeply universal, incredibly euphoric human emotion. You walk into a room, maybe you find a $20 bill on the sidewalk, or you just wake up on the right side of the bed and you think, man, I feel lucky today. But before we let that illusion carry us away to the nearest slot machine, we need to completely shatter that perception. We need to ask the real biological question. What is physically and electrically happening in your brain during that exact moment? Which brings us to Section 1, the illusion of luck. And this brilliantly illustrates the core conflict we're dealing with here. On one side, you have the slot machine. It operates on a computerized random number generator, or RNG. This is just cold math, guys. It dictates wins and losses with absolutely zero emotional bias. It literally doesn't care if you're having a good day or a terrible day. But on the other side, you have the human brain. And your brain is not a calculator. It's an incredibly sophisticated prediction machine. So when you sit down at a casino, you aren't really fighting a machine at all. You're fighting your own biology, which is desperately trying to predict the unpredictable. Let's move on to Section 2, dopamine and the trap. Now, to really understand this, we need to completely redefine dopamine. Most people just think of dopamine as the reward chemical, the chemical paycheck you get after you win. But actually, dopamine is the molecule of anticipation and pattern recognition. When you walk into a space feeling genuinely lucky, your brain is already operating in this massive state of dopamine priming. It creates what we call an optimism shift. Because your baseline dopamine levels are running high, your selective attention just skyrockets. Your brain is now actively, hungrily looking around its environment for any positive reinforcement to validate that lucky feeling. Let's see how this builds into a perfectly engineered trap. Step 1, you walk in primed with dopamine. Step 2, you encounter the machine, which uses something called variable ratio reinforcement. And guys, this is literally the most addictive psychological framework known to science. Because the wins are so unpredictable, every single spin gives you a tiny micro surge of dopamine. And then comes Step 3, the near miss. When the reels line up almost perfectly, your nucleus accumbens actually processes this mathematical coincidence as a massive evolutionary victory. Your brain screams, I knew I was lucky today, even though you just lost your money. All right, Section 3, brainwaves and the machine zone. Now, what's really interesting about this is how these frequencies map to your exact state of mind. Take a look at the top row. When you feel naturally lucky, relaxed, unattached, your brain is hanging out in the calm, rhythmic frequencies of alpha and theta, somewhere between 4 and 12 hertz. Your prefrontal cortex is fully online, you're making rational, sovereign decisions, maintaining strict financial boundaries, and, most importantly, hitting the cash out button when you're ahead. But look at the second row. If you start losing and get stressed, your brain jams into high beta static. You get frantic. And to cope with that stress, the casino's environment, the rhythmic C-scale audio chords, the flashing lights, the ergonomic seating, it actually pulls you out of that stress and forces you down into the bottom row, a theta-delta hypnotic drift. This hypnotic drift, it's known as the machine zone. And honestly, it is a terrifying reality. When you get pulled into this zone, the sensory immersion acts kind of like an external energetic drug. Your sense of time and space completely dissolves. Your individual ego just vanishes. You aren't even playing a game anymore. You're just reflexively pressing a button, staring blankly, and the absolute most dangerous part, your prefrontal cortex goes completely offline, totally stripping away your biological impulse control. You're no longer playing to win. At this point, you are playing solely to maintain the trance until your resources are entirely depleted. This takes us right into Section 4, the pattern glitch. All of this leads us to a critical cognitive glitch called apophenia. See, your brain is hardwired to find order in chaos. So, when you're riding a winning streak, your parietal lobe, which processes spatial data, and your frontal lobe team up to desperately try and build a logical narrative out of the slot machine's entirely random behavior. This is exactly why you start believing the machine is hot, Or, you think your physical posture is somehow changing the reels. Or you genuinely believe your lucky feeling is sending some kind of energetic command code directly into the software. Your brain is literally tricking you by perceiving meaningful patterns in data that is entirely 100% random. So the crucial point to remember is that massive number right there. Thousands of random numbers per millisecond. This is the cold, hard reality of the computerized random number generator. While your brain is deep in Apophenia, making up these elaborate stories about your energy influencing the game, the machine remains completely blind to your frequency. It's cycling through thousands of numbers every single millisecond. It is entirely indifferent to who is pulling the lever. It doesn't know you, and trust me, it definitely doesn't care about your luck. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Reclaiming Your Personal Power. I want you to really absorb this incredible quote from the research by Eternity Leonard. Portrayal is the portal of the mind. Because this is an absolute law of the mind. If you portray yourself as a helpless gambler, someone who is dependent on a computerized machine to grant you a sense of abundance or happiness, well, your mind opens a portal directly to loss, frustration, and addiction. Basically, how you view your relationship with the machine dictates exactly how your biology is going to respond to it. Because real luck, true sovereign luck, it isn't mathematical at all. It's biological. True luck is entering a room with your biological machine fully optimized. It means stabilizing your internal fuel source way before you even sit down. It means keeping your brainwaves firmly anchored in that calm, rational alpha-theta clarity we talked about earlier. It means keeping your prefrontal cortex fully alert and online, so those logical filters never ever shut down. When you do this, you know exactly when to claim your winnings, you step away from the static, and you walk out with your crown intact. You never let an external machine dictate your internal emotional state. So, I want to leave you with this lingering, provocative thought. The next time you sit down to play, or honestly interact with any highly stimulating technology, ask yourself, who is really controlling your electrical grid? Are you the sovereign master of your own neurobiology, anchored in clarity? Or have you surrendered your prefrontal cortex to the hypnotic drift of the machine zone? Remember, the power is entirely in your biology. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Stay focused, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next explainer.